To the Springs Radio Real Estate Show. I'm Cheryl Garlock of Colorado Front Range Properties, your host, and Daryl Stewart with, Daryl Harrison with Stewart Title. Oh, it's almost synonymous, isn't it, Daryl?
It has been.
Okay. We think of Daryl Harrison, we think of Stewart Title, right?
Yay, I like that.
I like that. I do too there. Hey, you guys, this is a show all about residential real estate. So if you got a question at all, we want you to give us a call, 719-321-7600. If you need help with selling your home or buying a property there, guess what? We want you to call too, 719-321-7600. You can visit us on the web at coloradospringsbesthomes.com. Use your mouse to find a house. You can search all the homes that are available not just in Colorado Springs, but on the Front Range right there. Click on the Search Homes tab. You are going to be glad that you did, because you'll be able to create several different searches, save properties. You can even schedule showings. You can ask for more information here. Best of all, you get to have properties emailed to you immediately as soon as they are listed and become available in the realtor's coveted MLS. Isn't that right, Daryl?
That's correct.
Yes. So that's the best source of information. You can just skip all that Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com stuff. Really, that's just a day late and a dollar short, as they say. So go to coloradospringsbesthomes.com. And by the way, if you are thinking about buying a home and you're kind of new to it and that sort of thing, or new to the area, you want to request my little book, I'll be glad to email it to you. It's called The Home Buying Process, Keys to Your Success. The Home Buying Process, Keys to Your Success, full of all sorts of tips and guides and strategies, negotiation points, and even a worksheet to help you find that right home there. Just give me a call at 719-321-7600 or visit my website and request it online at coloradospringsbesthomes.com. Now, I told you at the top of the show that we were talking a little bit about title insurance there and why title is so important to you in a real estate transaction. And Daryl, I was telling Daryl that I had a recent experience where where I had put a property under contract here, and I got the title work back from the title company, and I do read title commitments when they come through. I don't think every realtor really reads them as much as they should, but it's the fine print, and I'm telling you why this is so important for you to pay attention to your own paperwork that comes your way, and the title work is really important. Buried inside that commitment, you might say, was a little requirement and exception that the seller, the buyers were buying the property, and I was working with the buyers. The seller had a bankruptcy, Daryl.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, that became an issue, didn't it?
Bankruptcies can be an issue for sure.
Yeah. That means that the seller really can't sell that property until that bankruptcy court releases it. And they didn't have the proper documentation. And I got to tell you guys, going back to a BK trustee is no picnic.
No, it is not.
No. It's a federal deal, you guys. And so what that means is that they don't have, they're not loaded with the courts down here all the time. I think the bankruptcy trustee comes to El Paso County once a month. So getting paperwork and getting in front of them is not exactly the fastest thing to be able to do. And you got to get their permission. So it's a long, involved strategy. Read that, and I'll tell you why you want to pay attention to that, because if they can't release it, you can't buy it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, creditors have rights.
Yeah. Just imagine that.
Yeah.
Creditors have rights. I love it. Okay, well, listen, Daryl, I want to also talk to people about what this thing called the CFPB is. Tell them what that stands for.
Well, Consumer Finance Protection Bureau.
Right.
Okay.
And that's a new thing in the last 2 or 3 years, isn't it?
Well, it was established a little after 2010 from the Dodd-Frank Act.
Right. And why was it created? Tell us why it was created.
It was created in response to the financial meltdown that we had in 2008, which really affected the real estate market. So the government decided they wanted to have some more eyes on the ball.
Right, they did. They absolutely do want to go ahead and have more eyes on the ball there. And checking for fraud. And that's fraud not just by John Q. Public. It's really fraud by entities, isn't it?
Yeah, CFPB is looking at, the lenders first and foremost, making sure that they are disclosing properly to the borrowers what they're getting themselves into. But secondly, they're enforcing all of the real estate regulations as it relates to that consumer. They're there to protect the consumer in this case. Right,
absolutely. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that later on in the show here too, because we're going to be talking about credit worthiness here and what you need to know about credit, but more importantly, how do you fix that credit there? And so that's also where the whole disclosures from the CFPB and the mandates from that come into play there. So let's talk about what are the mandates for this whole thing.
Well, the mandates are going to be a lot of time frame issues as it relates to lenders, documents that they need to have in front of the borrower within 3 days, the disclosure of the fees with that time frame, and then they can't change up into the point of closing. The closing documents are going to be changing that we're going to be presenting to the borrowers, and they're going to be more in line with what they're agreeing with.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a really important point there because, you have a lot of times where you get situations where you get bait and switch, and that's exactly what you want to avoid. And I'm telling you about the bait and switch idea because frequently in the past, especially in the past, and I think you can find it here happening today too to a certain degree here, but this is all about trying to be very, very transparent here. You have a borrower who's actually looking at, acquiring a property there, getting a loan. They think that they're getting loan on certain types of terms, and all of a sudden those terms change. Or even if you, the borrower, says something as simple as this, you guys, you go from a 30-year fixed rate mortgage to a 15-year. You've got to send the proper documentation out in order to be in compliance, and you have to have a certain number of days in order to accept that, basically. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that would have to be completely redisclosed to the borrower with all of the new fees and calculations of interest and anything else that would be associated with that loan.
So, since we're talking about acronyms and we got the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, how is that different, Daryl, than RESPA, which is the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act?
Yeah, well, that's been in place since 1974.
Yeah.
And it's a act that really covers lenders, realtors, and title companies and closing companies.
Mm. Yeah, and so, but the CFP basically sort of somewhat enforces that act.
They're going to become a policing entity for that act.
That's right, the policing, the Nazis, you guys. Okay, so anyway, let's talk a little bit more real quick. We don't have a whole lot of time here, but the effect the CFPB is going to have on the overall real estate industry, meaning title companies, realtors, lenders, the whole 9 yards there.
Yeah, well, I mean, normally RESPA violations were atoned to the title companies and closing companies.
Yeah.
But now, recently, a $500,000 fine was passed through to a real estate company.
Oh, it was, and it was owned by one of our favorite characters here, and I love Warren Buffett, but it was a Berkshire Hathaway company, I believe,
That's
out of
what's reported.
Alabama, Alabama, you guys there. So, yeah. Disclosure. We'll talk more about that later, but we've got more to share with you, so stay tuned to the Springs Radio Real Estate Show. Need us, 719-321-7600.